Hi, everyone, and welcome to The Writer's Edge. I'm your host, Christy Stratus, and tonight we are going to be talking in detail about writing conferences. So if you're not already subscribed to The Writer's Edge, please hit subscribe down below and also hit the notification bell so you can see when we put up a new video. Now I'm going to introduce our panelists in under 60 seconds, maybe even under 30 seconds if I'm lucky. Today we have with us Sandra Wickham, and she is the coordinator of the Creative Ink Festival, and she's also a full-time accomplished author herself, as her work has been featured in several anthologies, podcasts, and online magazines. Creative Ink is a 3-day event full of inspiring panels, presentations, and workshops designed to be inclusive for all levels of writing. The festival is a chance to hone your craft while gaining new motivation. Attendees have the opportunity to chat with industry insiders in a relaxed and supportive environment, which sounds really great to me. And you guys know me, I am Christy Stratus, author of the Dark Victoriana collection, which includes Anatomy of a Darkened Heart and Brotherhood of Secrets. I also recently released this month, in fact, a new horror short story called The Subtlety of Terror, available pretty much anywhere you can buy books. So first of all, let's just start with the basics. If you could tell us a little bit more, Sandra, about Creative Ink, and especially because I noticed on the website that it says, I have to thank Randy McCharles of When Words Collide for his help and inspiration in getting this festival started. Tell us how Creative Ink came about and what it is.
Absolutely. Randy was supposed to be here so that he could do all the talking for me, but I guess that now I have to fill in. Thanks, Randy. No, I attended When Words Collide in Calgary for several years. And I have this, oh, is someone joining us now? There he is.
Hi, Randy.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
Hi.
I'm going to quickly interrupt you, Sandra, to introduce Randy for a moment.
Hey, Sandra.
Randy McCharles, thank you so much for joining us. Randy is the coordinator for the book festival When Words Collide, which I'm sure many of you have heard of. An accomplished author in his own right, he has been the recipient of several Aurora Awards, which is Canada's most prestigious award for speculative fiction. When Words Collide is an annual nonprofit festival modeled after the volunteer conventions popular in the sci-fi and fantasy communities. The festival is designed to bring readers and writers together in a celebration of the written word, and roughly 750 readers, writers, editors, publishers, agents, and artists attend, with hundreds of presenters in the program every year. So I wanted to ask both of you actually about When Words Collide and Creative Ink Festival. So you can, I know that When Words Collide came first. So Randy, if you wouldn't mind going first and telling us a little bit about it and how it came about.
I'm getting the audio twice distorted, so I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing, but you asked me about how When Words Collide started?
Yes.
Well, I'm a writer, and all of my writer friends in Calgary used to go to a local science fiction convention once a year to get together and network. And in 2010, they decided to become a Comic-Con. Didn't quite work, and they went bankrupt. And so while we were sitting there, watching this happen around us, we had a little discussion on maybe we should start our own event and do the opposite of what they did, go strictly literary instead of media. And so we did a little bit of brainstorming, and we figured, instead of just being speculative fiction, we should be all genres, literary fiction, nonfiction, poetry, you name it. And so we did this grand experiment. We budgeted for 150 people. We held our first event 10 months later in August of 2011, and 280 people showed up instead of 150. So it worked out very well. People really enjoyed mixing with people who wrote other things. And of course, readers read all across the board, so they could come and listen to authors and speakers talk about various different genres, what's going on in the writing world, what's happening with ebooks at the time, because it was an up-and-comer. So since then, we grew rapidly every year to where we're now capped at 750 attendees. And we sell out in June and have to turn people away for 2 months after that. So it's a very successful festival. We get about half our people that come out from Calgary, a quarter from the rest of Alberta, and another quarter from across Canada and the United States. So we get a really good mix of people.
That's fantastic. That's an amazing start, especially picking up from, looking at someone else's festival and what went wrong and picking up from there and just how much it's grown. That's really amazing. So Sandra, I know that you got inspiration at least from One Words Collide. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I had the opposite experience because I went to Randy's One Words Collide for several years. And I have this thing, it's kind of a condition really, where I like to take on these huge challenges for no real reason. No. My background actually was in promoting bodybuilding and fitness events. So it was, we had 300 athletes and volunteers and sponsors and 1,000 members in the audience. And so it kind of translated over into this as well. So I kind of figured I could do it. It's thanks to Randy that I even tried. I asked him a ton of questions, which he answered. And it always blows me away that he didn't have to give me all that information. He had a very successful event running already. He didn't have to answer all my queries, but he did. And so on his advice, we started with a one-day event. It wasn't really big, but just the atmosphere and everything about it made me realize that, yes, this is something I have to do. So we've been running now for 3 years, I think. And we're not as big as Randy's. We're still his little sister convention, but we're basically just modeling ours after his.
That is fantastic. There's so many great conventions out there and conferences and, festivals, everything. I've been to one myself. I'm looking to get to a lot more because of exactly what you have both said. It's very inspiring. And, I don't want to start one myself, but I am so excited when I get to go to one. It's just an amazing experience. So I hear from both of you that there are, I believe, writer and reader, there's things for writers and for readers. Do you both have writer and reader tracks, like actual workshops and like games for readers and stuff like that to do? Or is it more they just enjoy hearing from writers? What kinds of stuff is there for readers?
Well, that's a very good question. Our goal from the outset was to make it an event for readers and writers, not just a writers conference. There are writers conferences everywhere. And there's not a whole lot out there for readers except book fairs where they can go and buy a book. So we try to have half our programming geared for writers and half geared for readers. It's a battle because authors tend to want to talk to other authors. They want to share their knowledge about writing. And we try to ask them to share their, why do they write? They write because they read. And how does reading influence their writing? So we do get a good mix. For the early years, we did some very extensive demographics on our registration to find out where people were from, who they were, why they were there. We've now cut back to where we pretty much just say, are you a writer or a reader or something else? And it comes about 50-50, but I suspect a lot of people saying they're readers are aspiring writers, so I don't know whether it's really 50-50. But our whole methodology is to provide like a buffet. A writers conference might have 2 or 3 tracks. We have 10 to 12 tracks running all weekend. And so people can pick one of those things every hour that most interests them to go to. And those things can include science talks on astronomy. We do have some psychologists come in and talk about human behavior. We try to get a really, really, really good mix so that we can interest everybody. That said, we also have pretty much everything you'd find at a writers' conference too.
Are you doing similar things, Sandra?
Well, we're not as big as Randy, so we don't have as much space yet for programming, but we are targeting readers as well. We try and provide some programming that is specifically for them, but a lot of the topics readers are interested in anyway, because they want to know about the process. We as writers forget sometimes, the process is just like this thing, but to readers, it can be very interesting. Like, how do you come up with your ideas and how does it happen and how does it get to the bookshelves and all that kind of stuff. So they get to hear about that. They get to meet authors that they already know that they like. They get to meet them and talk to them. And they get to meet brand new authors. It's it's also, it's just the whole experience too. It's not specifically just about the sessions that they're attending. It's that you get to be in a place full of people who love books and are talking about books the entire time. So it's not just the actual sitting down in the sessions, but it's also the conversations in the hallway and going for lunch with these people and things like that. It's just the whole experience. It's also great for readers.
It is so much more, exactly as you said. It's so much more than necessarily what's planned. And these places, I've noticed, tend to be extremely, like, everyone is very friendly. Everyone is looking to meet other people. It's really easy to walk up to somebody and just ask them a question, or like sit down next to somebody and start talking, because you already know you have things in common and you're all there to meet each other. So I really find that a lot of fun and super easygoing for writers and for readers, for anybody who's there. So I wondered what kind of advice you have for people, for writers who want to have a booth or a table at your conference or festival. Is there anything in particular that draws readers in? And I know we have Josh Robertson in the audience, who is the conference king this year, going to all the conferences as an author. So, but what kinds of advice do you have for writers who are looking to do that?
Well, when we started When Words Collide, we took a different approach. I'd gone to conferences where an author would purchase a table in a vendor room and sit there all weekend trying to sell 10 books. And I see that as a terrible business model. So essentially what we did in our merchant's corner, we call it a merchant's corner rather than a dealer's room, is we only allow tables for 2 book vendors, publishers, and some writing organizations. And then we have at the end of the room 5 tables that we call the shared authors table. And what attending authors can do is they can put up to 3 different titles up there to be sold all weekend and volunteer an hour to help man the tables. And last year, those tables sold $6,000 worth of product. So that way the author gets to spend as much time pushing their book in that room as they like, but they also get to spend most of the weekend networking. So I see that as a really good model, and I see it catching on at other conferences.
Again, we are smaller, so but copying Randy. So we do have a co-author table as well, but it's only 2 tables right now. And the same thing, so an author can work the table for an hour and then have their books there. You can also have a table at ours as an author, and a lot of authors do that because then you're there all the time and the focus is on your book. So the co-author table, you pretty much, like Randy was saying, you'd have to be there as much as you could be trying to sell your book, because it's other authors working behind the table sometimes who may not be pushing your book, they might be pushing their book. So if you wanted to have your own table, you can do that at ours. And of course, we still get you on paneling because that's important too, and you can get someone to cover your table. But super important, whether your book is on the co-author table or your own table, is to get on panels. So people can see you. Don't push your book all the time. Don't flog your book when you're on the panel, but be on that panel. Give the best advice that you can. So come prepared to that panel. Give people the best advice you can. Let them have a good time while they're at your panel, and they're going to get to know you, and they're going to get to know, okay, this person knows what they're talking about. Maybe I should read their book. And then they can come find you in the dealer's room. But we still call ours a dealer's room, Randy. We have to talk about that. But right, okay. And but then they'll already kind of know you because they saw you on some panels, and so they can approach you easier than if you were just this complete stranger trying to sell your book. And so once they come to you, then it's up to you to tell them this book is the next greatest thing in the world and they need to buy it. But at least that gets them approaching you because they've met you kind of on the panels. And you don't have to spend a lot on your booth. There's some really great deals that authors are telling me about with the banners. You can get some gorgeous banners with your covers on them. That's not that expensive, but they really stand out. Or you can do something unique that's going to stand out, because unfortunately everyone does postcards and everyone does bookmarks, and a lot of times that doesn't really work. But if you can think of something different, like I'm going to shout out to one of my organizing committee members, actually, Mel Dawn. She has a nonfiction book called The Last Purr, and it's for owners of cats with chronic illness or terminal illness, right? Aw. And what she did was she took Kleenex or I should say tissue packages, and put her information on them on a sticker with her book title and all her information, and handed those out. And I was like, oh, that's such a good idea, right? Because it's different. People are like, what is this? Oh, it's because it's for dying cats, right? So if you can think of, and that doesn't cost a lot, but it's different. So if you can do something different that people take notice of, doesn't have to cost a lot. Just something that's unique to your book or your franchise, something like that.
Sandra made a good point about authors on panels promoting their books. Terrible idea. The best way to get someone disinterested in your book is to sit on a panel and push it. What you want to do is market yourself as an interesting person. And if people like what you have to say, they're going to go hunt down your books.
That's a really great point. And I think it makes a lot of sense. You're selling yourself as just a person that they would enjoy talking to. And then, of course, like you said, they're going to look up the book. They're also going to want to find you on social media. So that, of course, makes a lot of sense. And I like the suggestion of different things, since some people are like sort of worn out on pens and postcards, like you said. And I like that also. The tissue idea sort of goes with the emotions you're going to be feeling when you read this book. That's really smart. I think it makes a lot of sense. So it sort of clicks in many ways.
I actually have another tip, possibly. There is a podcast called The Business BFFs, and it's by Sam Bako and Claire Marshall, and they are two fabulous writers and fabulous marketers, and their podcast goes over things that they've learned at different events and what they're doing, what has worked for them, what has not worked for them. I highly recommend checking it out. It's about the business side of writing, which we all, have to deal with as well. And so there'll be lots of tips in there.
That's great. Thank you so much for recommending that. We do have a question from our audience. So thank you, Josh Robertson, for pointing this out. He is a fantasy author. In case you don't know, if anybody in the audience doesn't know who he is, you should definitely look him up. He says, do you ever find readers are frustrated if they don't see the author at the table? Like if a volunteer is running it, or do attendees know they can find the authors on panels?
I haven't run into that. Again, we're a larger festival. We're capped at 750, but over 3 days, you're going to see everybody multiple times. And a lot of people will buy the book, and then they will run into the author later, get it signed. But also on Saturday night, we have a mass autograph session in the ballroom. Where the whole ballroom is filled with tables and authors signing books, also hand selling some books if that's what they do. And we run that for 2 hours from 8 o'clock till 10 o'clock. So if people haven't, if they bought a book on Friday and they haven't gotten a signature by Saturday night, they can go there and get one.
We do the same because we're copying.
I go to Creative Inc. and keep an eye on Sandra. She's doing a terrific job.
He does. He comes every year, and it's so much pressure. No.
That's really nice, though. That's really wonderful.
Oh, it's great. I don't have to run that one. I can just go and enjoy myself.
Right? I'm sure, yeah. I have another question, actually, from the audience, and this is from Joe from Go and D Now. That is a really wonderful YouTube channel. If anybody has not heard of it, to check out.
Joe Compton, how you doing, Joe?
Yeah, Randy says hi, Joe. What lessons have you learned from previous years that you now have put into practice? And what specifically this year did you learn that you will apply to next year's conference?
That is an interesting question. I have a lot of conference experience. I used to help with the local convention before they went media. And I also brought 2 international conventions to Calgary. And when I put When Words Collide together, I used the best ideas from all those conferences that I'd gone to. So very few surprises, actually. So nothing actually comes to mind because I do have a lot of experience. And if someone comes up with a good idea that I haven't thought of, we just implement it.
Yeah, I can answer this one because I'm the newbie at this specific, literary conference. Even though I am copying Randy as much as possible, it's still a different thing out here in BC, and we're still finding our groove. I've definitely learned that I need a quality team helping me, and that I have a quality team that I need to trust. Shout out to my organizing committee, because they're going to watch this and they're going to be like, yes, she does, because they're very capable and they can take a lot of stuff off my hands. And I have learned last year especially that they can handle it, and I can dump lots of stuff on them and they can do it, and I can keep my eye on the bigger picture. I've also, this is why I went like this, because I don't know if I should share this part, but I think I'm also learning who I want to work with at our festival as far as people coming in, and who I maybe wouldn't. Right?
No, that's a smart business decision, really. I mean, that's how any business team or, group would work. So it does make total sense. There's only one way to learn that, and that's to try it and find out.
Yeah.
So I do understand that completely. Going back to panels for a minute, I did want to ask how somebody could get on a panel if they wanted to. Is this something that they just sign up for? Do they have to have certain qualifications? How would they get onto a panel?
Well, we are very much following the tradition of the speculative fiction world. We're apart from some specifically invited speakers, most of the speakers are attending experts who volunteer. So it's an opt-in kind of thing. On our website, we have a get involved item on the menu, and there you can volunteer to join our organizers board, volunteer to help on the ground at the festival, or volunteer to be a presenter. We don't vet our presenters. If someone says they have something to tell, we trust them. And so it's just a buffet. People come and network. We're all about networking. And if you vet all your presenters, you're going to limit your scope to your own preferences, I guess.
Again, we're smaller, so we're not pickier. I don't think, like, we just want everyone to come as well, but we only have so much space in our programming for people. But it's basically the same process. You just contact me. It's on the website. Let me know who you are, what you'd like to talk about, what your expertise is. We love lots of different panelists, so that people aren't going to panels and always seeing the same faces. So we want lots of different people and from different areas, which is happening more and more for us, that people are starting to know us. So now we've got crime writers and romance writers and nonfiction writers and poets coming, which is great. If they want to do a personal or like a single person presentation or a workshop, that's what we don't have as much space for. So we have to be a bit pickier about that. So basically, if you wanted to do one, it helps if it's a bit unique, because lots of people can talk about world building or character arcs or plotting or things like that. So if you have something that's a little bit unique, it will help you bump you up our list of presentations that we want to have.
Yeah, I just want to mention this. This year we had over 200 presenters. So
that's an amazing number.
We have lots of space.
Yes.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Well, now I'm very interested. I was before anyway, in both of your festivals and cons. So I have one more question to you, and that is there any particular workshop or panel topic that usually is the most popular? You just see everybody heading to that one, and everybody either looks forward to it or just tries to get to that one.
Well, the best attended event we've had every year for the entire 8 years of our operation has been the Friday evening keynotes, where all of our special guests speak for 15 to 20 minutes on anything they feel like. It's a 2-hour event. It fills the ballroom, and I've gone 8 years, so that's between 40 and 50 talks, and I've never been disappointed by one of them. They're always unique and inspiring, and it's my favorite event, and it appears to be the favorite event of a lot of people who attend.
Our keynote is not as big as Randy's, but people still love to come out to it. Last year, one of our biggest event was actually our closing ceremonies, which is crazy that everyone stayed right till the very last minute, but it was packed and everyone was so pumped and it was amazing, and I cried, of course, and it was wonderful. But because we did do a feedback form afterwards, so I actually know the top presentations from last year, and there was 2 that came out on top. One is the one that I'm going to take credit for. It's Tyner Gillies, who is a writer, but he's also a police sergeant here in BC. And I talked him into doing this presentation a couple of years ago. And what he does is he just takes Q&A. He lets people in the audience ask questions and he answers them. So it's those kind of things that writers would love to know, like who's the first one on the scene? What happens in the, you know, all that kind of stuff. And he just answers the questions. And so it's different every time because it's different questions every time. And people absolutely just love it. The other one was Dwayne Clayton, who actually comes in from Calgary. We stole him. We stole him from Randy. And he used to be a firefighter, paramedic, police officer, all this stuff. But his topic last year was, I'm going to say this probably wrong, but I think it was, what's the best poison to murder someone? Packed room. People love that. We also have a lawyer who comes in to talk about publishing contracts. That's always super popular. All the legal side of any sort of contracts within the writing business. So really what our most popular ones are not specifically, you know, how to write, but more the other intricate details that writers want to know that they want to put in their novels.
That's fascinating. And I have to say I would probably be the same way because I'm in a group called Sisters in Crime, which is a mystery writers group. And I am, yeah. And they do those kinds of presentations all the time with detectives and people like that just give you information. And it's amazing. You learn so much more than you could research online. It would take you forever to find this stuff. So I totally understand that. That's amazing. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for being here. This was really this is amazing. I am someone who is interested in going to more cons, would like to present, would like to be on panels. And so the information you've given me here today is super useful for me. So if you could tell us where we can find your festival online and also you, that would be fantastic. Let's start with Randy.
Okay, very easy for us. It is one word, whenwordscollide.org. It's a play on When Worlds Collide, of course. But on there is also links to our Facebook and Twitter, and we have a YouTube feed as well, and a podcast. My own website is my name, randymccharles.com.
Great. Thank you so much. And how about you, Sandra?
Really simple for us, too. We are creativeinkfestival.com. You can look that up on Facebook as well. We have a couple of groups there. And again, our social media stuff is all on our website. Again, kudos to my organizing committee. We have a brand new shiny website that's just fabulous. And I am sandrawickham.com. So look it up.
Perfect. Thank you both so much for being here. And thank you for the great questions from the audience and for just watching the show. I am Christy Stratus. You know me. You can find The Writer's Edge here on YouTube, or you can find us at thewritersedgeshow.com. You can also find us under The Writer's Edge Show on Facebook. And as for me, myself, I am at christystratus.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Creative Edge Writers Showcase, many other things. And I want to let you guys know about the next episode. October 11th is... we're not going to be doing an episode. I'm going to be actually at my college for a talk about my career path and journey. So the next panel is actually going to be on October 25th at 9 p.m. Eastern, as always. And that time we are going to have Christina Rienzi, who is the current president of the Central Jersey chapter of Sisters in Crime, with us to tell us about Sisters in Crime and what being in a writing group can mean to you. So again, thank you so much for being here, and we will see you next time on October 25th.
Thank you, Christy.